She walked onto the set smiling. She would walk off it furious. What began as a calm daytime conversation would unravel into one of the most uncomfortable moments this show had ever aired. No shouting, no insults, just one question. Meghan Markle wasn't prepared to answer, and one host who refused to back down. The studio lights were warm, almost forgiving. Soft gold tones reflected off the glass table, and the mug sat neatly arranged as if nothing unusual was about to happen. The audience, used to light beer and carefully guided conversations, settled into their seats with the expectation of something familiar, safe, predictable. Meghan Markle sat upright, hands folded lightly in front of her, posture practiced, expression calm but alert. She wore the kind of composed smile that looked effortless on camera, but required constant control. Across from her, Whoopi Goldberg leaned slightly back in her chair, glasses low on her nose, listening more than speaking. That alone was unusual. The segment opened smoothly. They talked about public life, about scrutiny, about the pressure of being constantly discussed by people who had never met you. Meghan spoke in complete sentences, carefully chosen words, her voice even and measured. "I think what people don't realize," she said, "is how exhausting it can be to live under a microscope where every intention is misread." Whoopi nodded slowly, not in agreement, just acknowledgement. "That's fair," she said. "Being watched all the time will do that to anyone." The exchange felt civil, almost warm. Meghan relaxed slightly. Her shoulders dropped a fraction. This was going well. This was familiar territory. But Whoopi didn't jump in reminded jokes. She didn't soften the moment with humor. She let the silence sit just long enough to matter. "You've spoken a lot," Whoopi continued, "about feeling misunderstood." "Yes," Meghan replied quickly, "constantly. And you've also said," Whoopi added, "that criticism itself has become a form of harm." Meghan hesitated just a beat too long. "I think when criticism ignores context," she said, "it becomes something else." Whoopi leaned forward now, not aggressively, intentionally. "Here's where people get confused," she said calmly, "because disagreement isn't the same thing as cruelty." The room shifted. Meghan smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes this time. "I agree," she said, "but that line gets crossed very easily." "Does it?" Whoopi asked. "Or does it get uncomfortable?" A ripple moved through the audience. Nothing explosive had been said, but something had changed. Meghan adjusted her hands, fingers interlacing tighter than before. "I don't think discomfort should be the price of telling your truth," she replied. Whoopi didn't interrupt. She didn't rush. "No," she said, "but sometimes discomfort is the result of hearing a truth you don't like." Meghan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I think that depends on who's speaking," she said, "and who's being listened to." Whoopi nodded once. "That's exactly what I want to talk about." The camera cut to a wider angle, the mugs, the table, the calm set that suddenly felt too quiet. Meghan glanced briefly toward the audience, then back to Whoopi. Her voice remained polite, but the edge had arrived. "I'm very aware," she said, "that certain people feel entitled to judge experiences they've never lived." Whoopi didn't flinch. "And I'm very aware," she replied evenly, "that sometimes power wears the costume of pain." The silence that followed wasn't scripted. Meghan blinked. "I'm not sure what you're implying," she said. Whoopi met her gaze directly. "I'm asking," she said, "whether accountability feels like an attack when you're not used to being questioned." A murmur moved through the studio. Meghan's smile disappeared completely now. "I've answered questions for years," she said. "I don't avoid them." Whoopi raised an eyebrow, not challengingly, curiously. "Then let's keep going." The producers signaled to move forward. The segment wasn't over yet, but something had already cracked, and Meghan knew it. The applause cue never came. It wasn't planned that way, but no one in the studio felt comfortable clapping. The air had thickened, heavy with words that hadn't been said yet, but were already understood. Meghan shifted in her chair, crossing one leg over the other with more force than necessary. She leaned forward slightly now, signaling engagement, but also defiance. "I think what's happening here," she said, voice still smooth, "is that people expect a certain kind of response from me. And when I don't deliver that, when I don't perform pain the way they want, it becomes suspicious." Whoopi didn't look at her notes. She didn't glance at the producers. She kept her eyes on Meghan, or, she said quietly, "it becomes inconvenient." Meghan inhaled sharply through her nose. "I've spent years being told how I should speak," she replied. "How I should feel, how grateful I should be for things that came at a cost most people don't see." "True," Whoopi said, But you also gain something most people don't get. Meghan's lips pressed together. And that means what? She asked. That it complicates the story. Whoopi answered. And say what you want about people, but they don't like stories that ask for sympathy while standing on a stage. There it was. Meghan straightened her back. I didn't ask for sympathy, she said firmly. I asked for understanding. Whoopi tilted her head. Understanding usually comes after honesty, she replied. Meghan let out a short, humorless laugh. Are you suggesting I haven't been honest? I'm suggesting, Whoopi said, that honesty doesn't mean control over the narrative. The audience shifted again. Someone coughed. A mug clinked softly as a hand trembled against the table. Meghan's tone sharpened. With respect, she said, people have told my story for me since the beginning. I simply took it back. And when people questioned it, Whoopi asked. They attacked it, Meghan shot back. Or they questioned you, Whoopi said calmly. Which isn't the same thing. Meghan leaned forward now too, mirroring Whoopi without realizing it. It's easy, she said, to say that when you're not the one being dissected daily. Whoopi didn't raise her voice. That was what made it unsettling. I've been dissected, she said, just not protected by silence. The sentence landed hard. Meghan's eyes flickered just for a second. So now this is about privilege? She asked, her voice tighter. Because last I checked, no one here knows what it's like to be inside my experience. Whoopi nodded slowly. And last I checked, she replied, experience doesn't exempt anyone from scrutiny. The producer's voice whispered urgently in the host's ear, but Whoopi didn't break eye contact. Meghan exhaled, visibly annoyed. I came here, she said, to talk, say my truth, not to defend myself against insinuations. And yet, Whoopi said, you're defending something. Meghan's hands moved now. Small gestures controlled but sharp. I won't apologize for protecting my family, she said, for setting boundaries. Boundaries are healthy, will be agreed, but they don't come with immunity. The word immunity hung in the air like smoke. Meghan shook her head. This is exactly the problem, she said. People want access. When they don't get it, they call it manipulation. Whoopi's voice remained steady. No, she said. They call it contradiction. Meghan's eyes hardened. Which contradiction? She demanded. Whoopi paused. Not for drama, for precision. You say... Why privacy matters, she said. But your story is everywhere. Meghan opened her mouth to respond, but Whoopi continued. You say you want peace, she added, but conflict follows you into every room. A low murmur rippled through the studio. This was no longer a conversation. It was a dissection. Meghan's composure cracked. Not fully, but enough. So, what is it you want from me? She asked. Silence reminder of my place. Whoopi's reply came without hesitation. I want consistency, she said, and I want honesty that doesn't need applause. Meghan stared at her, the silence stretched. I don't think this is fair, Meghan said finally. Whoopi nodded. Fair, she replied, is rarely comfortable. Meghan's jaw tightened. And neither, she said, is being judged by someone who doesn't live your reality. Whoopi's expression softened, but her words didn't. I don't need to live your reality, she said, to see when someone is fighting the mirror instead of the world. That was the moment. Meghan leaned back in her chair, her arms crossed, fully now closed. The warmth was gone. The segment was still live, and the break was minutes away. But Meghan Markle was already deciding whether she'd stay until it arrived. The brake lights stayed off. No commercials, no relief, just cameras, silence, and two women who had stopped pretending this was an interview. Meghan remained leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, eyes fixed forward. Not on Whoopi, not on the audience, but somewhere just beyond them. As if she were already imagining the exit. Whoopi noticed. You okay? Visible concern asked gently. Meghan turned her head slowly. I'm fine, she said. I'm just trying to understand why this feels less like a conversation and more like an interrogation. Whoopi didn't smile. Because questions get uncomfortable when they stop being predictable, she replied. Meghan's eyes flashed. So, that's what this is? She asked. Unpredictability for ratings. A few people in the front row inhaled sharply. Whoopi leaned forward, resting her elbows lightly on the table. No, she said. This is what happens when someone who's been listened to for years finally hears something they don't control. Meghan let out a breath that was almost a scoff. You're framing me as someone who can't handle dissent, she said. That's not fair, and it's certainly not accurate. Then handle it, Whoopi said. The challenge was calm, direct, unavoidable. Meghan sat upright again. I have handled it, she said relentlessly, gracefully, while being attacked from every angle. Whoopi raised an eyebrow. And yet, she replied, every disagreement becomes an attack in your version of events. Meghan's fingers curled slightly against her forearm. Ting. This is the moment where restraint becomes effort. You don't know what it's like, Meghan said, voice lowering. To be misrepresented constantly, to be reduced. Whoopi nodded once. I do, she said. I just didn't build a brand around it. The words landed like a dropped glass. Somewhere behind the cameras, a producer mouth cut, but the director shook his head. Meghan stared at Whoopi. A brand? She repeated. You think this is a brand? I think, Whoopi said evenly. That pain becomes currency when it's packaged. Meghan's composure fractured, not dramatically, but unmistakably. That's a cruel thing to say, she replied, especially from another woman. Whoopi didn't flinch. Cruelty isn't asking hard questions, she said. Cruelty is letting power go unchecked because we're afraid of being called insensitive. Meghan laughed, short, sharp, defensive. So now I'm powerful, she said. That's interesting. Whoopi gestured toward the cameras, the set, the global reach. You walked into this room with influence most people will never have, she said. That is power, reminded or not. Meghan shook her head slowly. This is exactly why people don't speak up, she said, because the moment they do, they're punished for it. Whoopi's voice softened, but only slightly. No, she said, they're challenged, and that's not punishment. Meghan's voice rose for the first time. You're invalidating my lived experience. The sentence echoed. Familiar, rehearsed, heavy. Whoopi held her gaze. No, she replied. I'm refusing to be managed by it. Silence. Not the awkward kind, the kind that presses against your ears, visible. Meghan's breathing changed. Faster now, shallower. This is not why I came here, she said. Whoopi nodded. I know, she said. You came here to be understood, but understanding doesn't mean agreement. Me. Gan stood halfway, then stopped. Sat back down, stood again. The chair scraped softly against the floor. Camera zoomed in. This is hostile, Meghan said, now fully standing. And I won't participate in something that feels deliberately undermining. Whoopi remained seated. Then say that, she said. Don't dress it up as principle. Meghan's eyes narrowed. I don't owe you anything, she said. Whoopi's response was immediate, and that, she said, is the first honest sentence you've said all morning. The studio froze. Meghan stared at her, stunned. For a moment it looked like she might say something else, something explosive. Instead, she exhaled sharply. I think we're done here, she said. Whoopi nodded once. That's your choice, she replied. Just don't confuse leaving with winning. Meghan turned toward the exit. The audience didn't clap, not because they were told not to, because no one knew what reaction was safe anymore. As Meghan took her first step away from the table, Whoopi spoke again quietly, almost sadly. Control feels like strength, she said, until the moment you lose it. Meghan stopped. She didn't turn around. The camera held on her back. The studio lights burned, and everyone understood. The next move wouldn't be words. Meghan stood still for 3 seconds, not because she was reconsidering, because she was calculating. The studio lights hummed softly above her. The table behind her was silent. No voices, no interruptions, no rescue, just space. Then she reached The microphone clipped to her dress. Her fingers hesitated for half a second, long enough for the cameras to catch it. She unclipped it. The small click echoed louder than any argument that had come before. She placed the mic carefully on the glass table. Not tossed, not slammed, placed. That choice mattered. I won't continue in an environment that thrives on misrepresentation, Meghan said, her back still turned to Whoopi. I came here to share truth, not to be dissected. The sentence sounded rehearsed, but her breathing didn't. Whoopi didn't stand, didn't interrupt, didn't chase the moment. She simply watched. Meghan picked up her notes, thin, almost symbolic, and took one step toward the exit, then another. The audience remained frozen, not silent out of obedience, silent out of uncertainty. Was this the moment to clap, to boo, to do nothing? No cue came. Meghan reached the edge of the set. Just before disappearing behind the curtain, she stopped again. This time, she turned. She looked directly at Whoopi. For what it's worth, she said, voice steady but eyes sharp. I expected better from you. The words were meant to land heavy. They didn't. Whoopi lifted her chin slightly. For what it's worth, she replied calmly. I expected honesty. We both leave disappointed. That was it. No sting, no flourish, just truth spoken without urgency. Meghan blinked once, then she turned and walked off. The curtain closed behind her, and the studio exhaled for the first time in minutes. The director waited 2 beats, then 3 before switching cameras. Whoopi remained seated, hands folded in front of her. The table looked suddenly larger. The empty chair next to her wasn't dramatic, it was awkward, real. Whoopi looked into the main camera. "Well," she said, not smiling, not frowning. That was unscripted. A ripple of restrained laughter moved through the audience. Not relief, not approval, recognition. "This isn't about sides," Whoopi continued. "It's about conversation. And sometimes conversation ends before we're ready." She paused, and sometimes, she added, "people leave when the mirror stays in place." No applause followed because clapping would have cheapened it. The camera slowly zoomed out. The segment ended without music. No graphics, no transition, just a cut to black. Aftermath. Within 10 minutes, the clip was everywhere. Not the argument, not the accusations, the silence, the unbroken shot of Meghan removing the mic, the stillness of Whoopi as she didn't chase her, the lack of applause. Comment sections split instantly. Some called it disrespect, others called it overdue. But nearly everyone agreed on one thing. This didn't look staged. Body language analysts replayed the moment you could see Meghan's jaw tighten. Producers dissected Whoopi's refusal to escalate. Viewers froze the frame where Meghan paused at the curtain. That pause became the thumbnail. That pause became the headline. Not Meghan Markle walks off set. But why did she stop? By the next morning, the clip had passed 10 million views. Not because someone yelled, because no one did. And in a media world addicted to noise, restraint became the loudest sound of all. Later that night, Whoopi was asked about it backstage. She shrugged. She didn't lose control, she said. She protected it. I just didn't step out of the way. That line never aired, but it leaked and it stuck. Because sometimes the most powerful exit isn't storming out. It's realizing the room didn't need you to leave to keep standing. If moments like this make you pause, if silence speaks louder than shouting, then you're reminded why these conversations matter. Subscribe for stories that don't flinch. Like the video if you felt the tension, and stay with us because the next moment everyone argues about might already be unfolding.